because this is the future of public speaking.
It is. Oh, it's
When you're
so
bringing in all of these different digital tools, this is exactly why we're doing this. Because the way that we used to do speaking, getting up on stage live and in person, live, remember that? Live in front of a studio audience. Those days are gone. And actually, I shouldn't even say they're gone. It's just that those days are now accompanied by this digital platform, by this technology that is now a part of our world. And we have to learn not to reject it, not to say, but I used to like to do it back in the day, the same old way. We've got to evolve the way that we speak. Why? Because speaking, as we always say, is never about you, but it's about everybody else. And if we want people to receive what we are sharing, then we have to be able to share it not in a way that just is comfortable and authentic to ourselves, but also is receptive to the people we're speaking.
Oh, Mark, yeah, awesome. All right, we did it. We're here. We're on LinkedIn Live. Yes. I'm super happy that we tried to run this a couple of weeks ago. So anybody watching, if you tried to join, the future of public speaking is you need to be able to get the tech to work. But we covered some really cool, and we had some people move over from LinkedIn and just join us here on Zoom. But we covered some really important things that I think we should rehash again, Mark. The first one was like, what does it look like? And it's kind of two parts, right? What does it look like with all the new technologies, AI and whatnot, when content can be created in a second? And then I think the other piece of it is how much more important is speaking going to be for everybody?
Well, you already mentioned AI, right? That's at the top of everybody's technology talk, right? At the top of it. And I'm so glad that we had talked about it. And I remember we were talking to Tony and he had brought it up. I remember I went to an event where somebody gave a speech, and when she was done, she revealed that the entire speech had been written by AI.
Mm.
And
Mm.
her purpose in delivering it was actually to show the difference. And a number of people in the room said, oh, yeah, I thought I could tell the difference. But I think that the technology is probably getting much more advanced to a certain point where the more you use it, the more it might start to pick up on your cadence and your tendencies and your unique voice. And then all of a sudden, maybe it can create content that is authentic to you.
You know what? That's a good point, Mark, because I know you and I have messed around with our separate AIs for the same exact project. We'll be working on a project for Speaker Skills Academy, and the voice will definitely be different. Here's the thing that, and I said this last time, AI and technology might be able to create content on the fly, but it can never replicate your voice, how you use your voice, and even your own and your stories. Like, it will never know those things. And speaking is going to become so much more elevated because it used to be, well, it still is probably. A lot of people don't like to write. And so now that you've removed that block, anybody can create content that is pretty decent by a couple of little prompts. But how many people can get on a stage, or how many people can share in a meeting a really great story and captivate people? That's what we need to be thinking about, the future of public speaking.
Yeah, because if it can capture your voice in creating the content, it still can't capture your voice and your essence when you're actually speaking. It has not gotten to that point yet where Terminator is coming out and speaking exactly just like you. But here's what I do want to say as far as the future is concerned, because I was definitely one of those people. I was like, I'm not touching that thing. I don't like it. I don't want to use it. No robot can replace me. No, no. I have used it a lot. Chat and I are like close buddies, right? But here's what I've learned about the future of it. We can't use it to create the content, but we can partner with it to refine the content, right? And maybe give us another way. I'll give you a perfect example. I was working with a client recently who had an idea for what she wanted to say about why she's so passionate about the field or the job that she's applying for. And I thought she had all the content and all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, I felt like, and we talked about this on Speaker Skills Academy the other day, the structure wasn't there.
Mm.
And
All the little
so,
pieces were, but it wasn't.
yeah, it was like the
Yeah.
pieces were there, but it was just kind of mismatch. And
Mm.
so I went in and, I'm talking to Chat, and I'm like, Chat, listen, I want to take this part and this part and this part, and I want to kind of restructure it, and I want to add in this because after talking to her, she said something that wasn't there, but and Chat can't create anything until you put it in there. So you are still the brains behind this. You
Yeah.
feed it the content. That's the future. Partnering with it by giving it the content and telling it what you want it to do with the content, and then here's the English teacher going to come out. You better proofread it. You better proofread it and make sure. Don't just trust it. Don't just put it out there. Like, trust your instincts and go back and read it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I love that, Mark. I can't stress enough that I did a mentoring event last night for one of the big universities here in Oregon, and it was for a pitch competition for the entire school. They're like these students are starting businesses and they're doing pitches. And I got paired up with a couple of different entrepreneurs. And I would be like, and I would tell everyone, like, tell me about your business. And then when they were done, I would be like, tell me why we need this, because they got so focused on this is what it is. This is like, they got so focused on that. And I'm like, you need to punch the E button. Like, how am I going to feel emotionally connected to that? And if it's not a product or service that I like need, make me need it. And so a lot of the conversations we were having last night, it's like, it's your job. If you're pitching, you could ask AI, like, write me the perfect pitch. And it probably would come up with a good logical argument. But how are you as an entrepreneur going to go out there and really sell it to other people? What stories would you use? So that can't be really replicated.
I got to add this. And first of all, for a second, I just got to do a shout out. I got a former student in the room. Jane,
Yes, I saw that.
what's going on, Jane? Oh,
Yeah, and
Bill Lewis.
Mario's in the house too. Yeah.
um, what you just spoke to, especially about like how do you speak about it? What stories do you tell it? Listen, the future of public speaking is probably going to rely on our impromptu and extemporaneous skills more than anything else, right? And no matter how fast AI can type out and jot down things like on the spot, I don't have the time to, what's the answer? What's the answer? What's the answer? I got to be able to think on my own two human feet, right? And so I think the future of public speaking is so much ingrained in our ability to think on our feet. And, that's one of the things that I love about what we get to do with everybody. When we get to drill, like so much of what we do is there's a lot of impromptu stuff to help build out those skills. So I think the ability to really think on your feet and not to like write speeches all the time. But just to kind of like to your point, Kathy, and we had this conversation with Mario a long time ago about creating content. Some people like to write it out. Some people like to, as I say, Jay-Z and Lil Wayne method. Some people kind of like to write down talking points. Either way you look at it, we're going to have to be able to think on our feet a whole lot more. So we've got to be able to exercise that muscle moving forward.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of Mario, he just wrote a comment in here, and I want to address what he's saying, because he is, we had Mario on our show and we talked about our three different methods on how we all speak. And Mario was the one that you were kind of more of the hybrid. Mario was more like really, really prepared, spending a long time researching, preparing. And so he asked, and we loved his method. And I remember when we left the show, we were like, let's all try each other's methods out because there's so many methods. But Mario, yeah, I'm sure you, if you're not already doing it, it is so good as a research partner, as a creative brainstormer. I love to go in and like push, push, push. Like, I want to speak about this. Tell me the 12 most unique fun facts about this thing that I'm going to talk about. And you, and Mark, you already alluded to this. You have to ask it the right questions. Because when you go in front of a room and we're about to get to everyday communication. So any of y'all watching going, hey, I'm not a professional speaker, we're getting to you. But if you're going into a meeting or you're giving a TED talk or you're speaking, um, you need to pop it. It's not about conveying just the information. So it's not even about the research that you do. It's like, how can you get the best info out of it? And then how can you bring that alive? Because you got to add you to it.
You know, I think about the fact that we're in this podcast era, right? And you think about podcasting, no faces, right? Except when you do a web show, like it's about to
Like
go
us.
down.
You're like, except for
But,
us.
right. But when you're doing a podcast, there's a lot of rich content that's being shared, but we're listening to it. Even thinking about audiobooks, and I have not gotten into the audiobook phase yet. I probably need to work on my attention span for it. But even when you think about all of that, they still have to work on bringing those words to life. And I feel like there's often been this debate in the speaking world about content versus delivery. And I've often argued, let's not pit these two things against each other. Let's not even put one over the other. But Maya Angelou said, people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget the way you made them feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those feelings come through working on our delivery. And it's funny because I think a lot of people say, but how do you teach that? And I think that's what we have to think about even more in the future. How do we teach and help people bring out their charisma so that even if the content is created somewhere else, you can still bring those words to life?
I love that so much, Mark. And oh, look what Mario said. He gave us such a compliment. Thank you, Mario. He's like, you guys are the future of public speaking. On that note, though, I just want to do a call out to our community because one of the things that's evolving and changing in speaking, and this is for everybody, is that we will need to do more of it. It used to be you could be somebody that's like, oh, I don't have a public speaking role, you know. And I think communication teachers all over the world were like, no, everybody needs to speak well. But a lot of people were like, no, that's not my thing. But nowadays, with all the content and all the things that are easily being created and how much we're losing our attention span, even to have a conversation at work or in a meeting, especially in a Zoom meeting where there could be so many things out here that you don't see. You have to be able to capture and keep attention. You have to know how to chunk your information down. You cannot anymore do a story and it's 9 minutes long and expect people to to listen to it. At least not in an everyday conversation. If you're a comedian, come on, you can do it, you know. But Mark, I would love for you to tell everybody, like, the reason we started Speaker Skills Academy was because we realized you don't get better. You got on your water bottle. You don't get better at anything when you're doing the actual thing. You only get better when you're practicing and practicing it, whether it be playing the piano, speaking, playing sports. And so it'd be like, you should tell everybody, like, like when in the community, the reason that we do it is because there's really no other place that you can practice with people. You don't want to practice on people.
Speaking, I always say, is a solo sport. Or it can feel like a solo sport. And I even say that sometimes the reason why speaking is so hard is because sometimes we feel alone in our space, even when sometimes even in a one-on-one conversation, because we're always worried about what people are thinking or what they're saying, right? So it could feel so alone when you're opening up your mouth and hoping that somebody else gets what you're saying. I think the thing about what we do is that I always say this, it's not about a program, it's not about a class, it's not about a workshop. More than anything else, it's about a community.
Mm.
And it's about a group of people coming together and having fun. It's like game night, right? We're
Every
just having
time.
fun together and chatting and everything like that. And I think that's why that's what's so important. And I think I was inspired by things. I'm going to drop a couple of names here, like the November Project or Black Girls Run,
Mm.
because those are communities. Those are not just, this initiative or this next big thing. They're communities, and that's what brings people together. And I think that's the future of speaking. We need to stop making it feel like we're all alone.
Mm.
And we
Mm.
need to start creating a community experience every time we speak.
Ooh, Mark, that's so good. I love that. And we need that now more than ever. We need speaking to be a connecting thing, not a disconnecting thing. It might be kind of fun if we just, we have people watching right now and some people adding some comments in. My friend Luann is on watching, and she was the inspiration for the Do the New because her TED Talk was about doing the new. Right. And she delivered that so well. But maybe we could share, like we could show people like a simple drill that they could do to practice speaking with other people. That would be fun because really we do get together within our community and it's like game night. We're practicing fun things all the time. But I just had the opportunity to speak to somebody that I'm going to be coaching for a TED Talk, and he does these shows on grief. So he tours all around the United States and they do a show, and the show is multiple parts. Some of it is comedy, some of it's music, some of it is just like storytelling. And he impressed me so much, Mark. You know what he started his practice? He's like, I need to be a better storyteller. You know what he decided to do? 90 days of creating one metaphor a day. Just learning to build that muscle of using metaphors. And I was like, such a simple little, such a simple little thing, but huge power. And so I put a little post in our community this morning. And I said, who's going to join me? I'm going to start today. And I happened to be at the gym this morning. And so I said, going to the gym is like going to your weird uncle's house for Thanksgiving. You don't want to do it, but you have to.
First of all, I love that because we do something maybe formal, depending on how you want to put it, right? But what you just said is so awesome. We all need to find an everyday habit or an everyday routine or an everyday way to practice and drill these skills,
Mm.
right? Because if we're just waiting for a program, then the skill's only as good as the next time you go to the program. It's like, the skill's only good the next time I go to Crunch Fitness. But if I could every morning do a couple of push-ups or squats, that's going to really habitualize, right? And automatize, that skill. You know,
Yeah.
one of the things, since you talked about the story, one of the things that I've often encouraged people to do, especially I worked with a couple of people who they struggled. They sort of had, you call it the resting bitch face. But some people just kind of have that still face, right? And they want to work on the stretch of the
Yeah.
face and using it all and being animated. And as I've talked to you about before, one of the ways that I have found to really stretch and make your face more flexible and animated is to every once in a while turn on one of your favorite songs and
Mm.
just like lip sync to it. Lip sync to it like you mean it, right? Get into your inner Mary J. Blige. You know, they always say Mary J. Blige is awesome because she feels her music. When she talks about no more drama, you can tell she can't deal
She
with no
means
more
it.
drama, right? So listen, even if you gotta close the curtains, close the door.
Hide out.
Hide out, just have fun with it because as you mouth the words and your face starts to match the music, what's going on, it's a way of exercising your speaking skills in a way that you probably never even realized you were exercising your speaking skills. So
Yeah.
when we're done today, everybody better turn on their favorite song, go into their favorite space, and lip sync for at least 30 seconds.
Like you mean it. All right, I have a fun little drill we could do that we could show people so that they could do it with people in their family or at the dinner table or whatever that I think would be fun. And this one would be for expanding your use of words. We talk about it a lot in our community that everybody tends to do pattern speaking. And so, like I say awesome a lot, right? And like you have these 70% of the words that you say, or you always say these type of words. And so we're always trying to push to use more vibrant words. And one of the fun things that you and I can do right now as a drill to show people is this one. It's the don't hate, appreciate. And if you remember this, Mark, I say don't hate, appreciate. And then you have to say, you have to rhyme with appreciate. So you might say don't hate, regulate, right? And then I have to say something. And it's easy at first and then it becomes hard, right? Because then you're really having to like search for words, but it causes your creative brain to search. So, okay, I'll start again because it's my turn because I gave you don't hate, appreciate, don't hate, regulate, don't hate, facilitate.
Don't hate, oscillate.
Oh, I like it. I love that. Don't hate, navigate.
Don't hate, resuscitate.
Oh, resuscitate. I love it. Don't hate, propagate. I don't know about that one, but it rhymes.
Don't hate. I don't know how this one's gonna come out, but I'll say don't hate, regurgitate.
Oh, I love that. I will tell you, there's a lot of like really not great words like that rhyme with that rhyme with that that rhyme with it. So I won't do in case anybody's kids are around and they're just I won't do it. Okay. Don't hate, alleviate.
Oh, hold on. My good friend Scott, I don't know if he's on, but we both love In Excess,
Mm,
right?
mm.
Remember that group
Oh,
NXS?
no, I love them. Yeah.
So, all right, you want a song to lip sync to? They had a song called Mediate,
Oh, yes. And then yes.
right? And then it rhymed every word. So
Okay, so
don't
you got
hate, mediate.
Oh, now you have to think about now you're gonna destroy me because now you're gonna think about every single word that they put in that song. Okay, I used alleviate. Okay, don't hate. You already said resuscitate. Don't hate. Mm. Oh, it's getting hard.
It
Don't.
is.
Yeah, feel free to pop one in if you want. And
All
oh,
right.
anybody watching, if you have one, oh please. Oh, look.
Don't hate
Oh,
roller
we got
skate.
some. We got some. Don't hate roller skate.
I love it, John.
And Luann, I facilitators at heart. I already said don't hate, facilitate. So
I
yeah.
love it.
What? Come on, I should have come up with don't hate roller skate.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I
I
was
will
going,
say, don't hate, collaborate.
yes. Oh, good one. Don't hate, collaborate. Don't hate. And then one day, this is funny. I was playing it with my friend and he let me have this one, but I said, don't hate Bill Gates. And like, I just, I just, I couldn't come up with anything else. And he goes, you know what? I'm gonna give it to you. That's a
That was good. That was good. That was
creative
good.
one. But I think people can understand that you could do that, and it's really fun to just to go back and forth. And sometimes I'll do it with people when I'm walking. So you're kind of, you're outside, you got fresh air and you're able to kind of open your creative brain and do that. Super fun thing. It's just, if we want to get better at speaking, we need to drill it more. We need to be intentional about it. Should we do
You
another
know,
drill?
well, before we do that, I gotta say, Mario said, "Don't hate, elevate." Luann said, "Don't hate, infiltrate." I love that.
Oh,
Oh
yes.
man, don't hate, cooperate. Oh man,
Cooperate.
I love it. I love it.
Are
Here's
you
what,
guys cheating though? Like, are you in front of like we don't know. We're over here just trying to do it, but I'm not accusing y'all, but
you know what though? But it's great. Here's a word I'm gonna use. It's great to play along.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think at the end of the day, that's what the future of public speaking and that's what drilling is all about. It's about finding a way to make this playful. For
Yeah.
too long, it's been stressful, but the future is to find a way to make it playful. I mean, how many more years, decades are we going to talk about how public speaking is the greatest or the second greatest fear in the world? Like, how are we going to eventually overturn that? And if I could even go upon that even further, for all of the parents who are in the room, especially all of the parents of this current generation that sometimes struggles with speaking because just being in their digital spaces, that's their generation, right? And sometimes you may sit around the kitchen table or around the living room, and it's like, oh my goodness, will this child just say 3 words? Oh my goodness, when I get this one together with that cousin from the same generation, and I've been in this situation, right? Um, they don't talk. But maybe if we found ways to drill, which are really just ways of gamifying public speaking, right? You could say, like the drill we just did, you could do around the kitchen table
Yeah.
and add
Yeah.
fun to it.
Oh yeah. So fun. So fun. Yeah, I love those. And there's a lot of different ways for word stuff. I mean, we'll hit another one, Mark, because we like that's just for like creative word choices. That's just one little tiny thing of speaking. We do things in our community many times on metaphors, creating magical metaphors, like trying to do that. There's ways to add humor. We had one of our coaches, Alexina, ran a great session the other day on how to take a common object and create observational humor around it. And it's so simple. We don't allow our brain usually to put 20 seconds of prep or thought into things. In fact, most people, think about it, Mark, this is most people, at least most people I coach, they're like, oh, I have to give a speech. What do I write? Like, and it's the wrong place to start, right? So just being able to like expand some of these things are techniques, right? Like what we did, word choice is kind of like a technique to kind of further your brain and be a little bit more creative. But some of the things that we do too are on prep. Maybe we could talk about something on how to quickly prep, prep for speaking.
Well, I think one of the things that comes to mind for me when we talked about drilling, we talked about our EO framework, right? Um, idea, the emotion, the outcome. I think George, when he ran a drill the other night, he really did a variation on that, right? He did a remix on it,
He
right?
did.
Know, feel, and do, right? Um, I think part of this content creation moving forward is giving ourselves some kind of a structure in our head. But I
Mm,
but what I love about what George did in our last drill session is he mentioned we don't often think about what's the call to action,
yeah. Yep.
right? And that's like we think about making our point or making somebody laugh or telling a good story, but we don't even and again, Kathy, this is not just about going up on stage and speaking. This is about everyday conversations, right? You come home from after a long day at work. How you doing? How was your day today? How was your day today? Tell me about your day today. Tell me about your, and like it just goes back and forth, and then you're just opening your mouth and letting words come out without any kind of particular purpose, right?
Yeah.
But what if the purpose was some kind of call to action, right? Or something we can learn from, not just talking for the purpose of talking, but for the purpose of getting people to either think or feel or to do something differently than they had ever done before.
Mm. I love
Mm.
that so much. And Luann, who's on right now, it's awesome. She knows she worked with me. I coached her on her TED Talk. She did such a good job.
Mm.
I'm always like, ooh, what's that juicy idea that only you can talk about, that you have an idea angle that no one else can talk about the same way that you can. But at the end of the day, what do you want them to do with it? And I'm going to just talk about Luann's talk for a second, because she ended up giving this, using this catchphrase of do the new. And the do the new was because she challenged herself to do something new every single day for a year, every single day, something brand new. And she gave herself some rules around it. If she hasn't done it since she was a kid, she could do it again, right? Like if she hasn't done hopscotch since she was a kid, she could do it again. But it was a really cool call to action. And many times what we see, Mark, even in like TED Talks that are like carefully curated, I always am like, don't say thank you at the end of the talk, not because I don't like people to be polite, but because thank you is not a call to action. Like your thing at the end, but the last thing that you say should be like, woo, the audience is like, oh, what am I going to do with this? And it doesn't always have to be that they do something, right? If you're talking about that thing where you come home and you're hanging out with your kids and your wife, if you ask your kids a question, what are kids famous for doing? Answering with one word.
Yes,
Yes,
fine,
no.
okay,
Okay,
good,
it's all right.
nothing.
Right? So your job would be, as the speaker, the one speaking, the one communicating, is to try to facilitate an engaging conversation. That's one of your call to actions, is to get a response in that particular moment, right?
Ooh, I'm gonna jump on this word facilitate for a second because it's facilitating a conversation at the dinner table. It's facilitating a conversation at a restaurant, at a high school reunion, at a meeting, or on stage while doing a training. I think the future is so much more now about facilitating. And I remember really learning that lesson firsthand when I started doing a workshop on, helping teams to be much more cohesive, right?
Mhm.
And at first, my original approach was always like, what's this good 60-minute talk that I could do? And then it became this playful thing where I was just really setting something up for them to do. And then
Yeah.
I come up with these questions for them to discuss. And being able to let go of the microphone, being able to let go of the red circle, being let go of the speaking area, and making it more, here's the word, communal.
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
Oh, and while you were talking, Luann put a comment in. It's hilarious that you both would say the same thing. She said that there was a teacher at Temple University that required students to get up at the beginning of the class and answer questions. Like if you were a kitchen appliance, what would you be? It wasn't a public speaking class, but by the end of it, people were like really good at public speaking. That's another thing, right? You like hide public speaking in fun. And I love what that teacher did, because one of the things that I've been teaching lately in my storytelling workshops are point of views. People use POV all the time in like videos and stuff, right? And one of the point of views can be an innate object, and that's super fun. It expands your brain on how to tell a story, not just from you, how to include other people, even when they're not talking. A kitchen appliance can't talk, so talk for it. That is so fun. Make it part of the story. I did this thing, so when I was in London doing my storytelling class last month, I had three people come up. This is so funny, Mark. And I replicated it on a smaller scale in Speaker Skills Academy, but I said, okay, you're three friends, you all going to college, none of you have any money, you're all spending all your money for books and school, and you all decide that you want to get pizza. One of you buys the pizza, the other two, all of you are eating the pizza, but one of the two of you eats the last piece of pizza. So then I tell everybody for 30 seconds to give their point of view why they did that. And people are laughing because you can come up with whatever you want. One person said, well, I just ran like a 10K and they didn't. So I thought I should eat the last piece of pizza. I earned it. Right. And then I had one more person come up and I said, okay, now you be the piece of pizza.
Mm.
Right? And so it's such a fun way to practice storytelling, and it forces you to get outside of your position. A lot of people only know how to tell stories like, I did this, it was me, this happened. We have to learn how to mess around with that and tell stories that do feel more communal.
You know, that reminds me of, I was talking to a group about conflict resolution, right? You can't have life without conflict. You're going to have a conflict, right? That's probably why we speak, because there's a conflict to be resolved, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, one of the things we messed around with was there's all of these different like conflict resolution approaches, right? I
Mm.
remember learning some of us force our opinion on others, and some people accommodate, and some people avoid, and some people compromise, and some people collaborate. Well, similar to what you're saying, from point of view was, all right, so here's a couple of different scenarios. Take one of the different conflict management styles and talk your way through that scenario using that style, right? Maybe you don't
Ooh.
force things, but right now we're going to role play, and now you're going to force it. And now you're going to go through that same scenario again. Now you're going to try to avoid it. Now you're going to try to collaborate. And
Mhm.
so I love what you just said about kind of experimenting with different ways. And what I love to add about that is the goal is not to present any of those ways as negative or positive, because everything's got its strength, right? Just like different perspectives. Your perspective has its strength. It's not better, it's not wrong, it's not right, it's just different. And
Right.
sometimes you can leverage it in different situations. And so we need to be able to play around with all of these different facets and different perspectives and approaches and ways of doing things. We've got to increase our flexibility and our versatility as communicators and as people.
Oh, Mark, that is so good. I honestly, if we were to sum up this whole what we're talking about, the future of public speaking is what you just said. We have got to flex, we've got to expand, we have to be more creative, we have to practice more, but not the practice that's boring. The fun, like always thinking about how to improve your speaking through fun games and drills, because we need to be better at speaking. I know that technology does two things always to us. It brings us closer to people, and then it puts a big gap in between us. Like it's weird how it does both at the same time. I remember when emails first came out, I was like, oh, this is great. You can like email anybody like really quickly. And then you get 10,000 emails, and then all of a sudden you can't respond to anybody. And like, you know, and I think texting had its evolution in that space too. And speaking is going through an evolution right now. And I would encourage anybody that's watching to really think about how you want to evolve how you show up with speaking. And again, it doesn't have to be this formal space of you're giving a TED talk. Like, how do you want to be a better speaker, storyteller in your life, just in general? You'll be a more interesting person. You'll be a more persuasive person. You'll probably be a kinder person if you start to learn how to tell stories from more than just your angle. But anyway, I think that's a good sum up, Mark, of the future of public speaking.
Well, I'm still going to build up on it, even if we're summarizing it. This whole thought of being your authentic self I think we need to embrace the fact that what is so truly authentic about you is that there are multiple sides of
Mm,
who you are,
yeah.
right? And so, like, you may have your style, you may have your language, but it's okay if you speak a little bit differently in front of John than you do in front of Kathy.
Tell that to John. No. John, if you're still watching.
And I only say that because that's not about you being inauthentic. That's about you being adaptive to the person you're speaking to, right? So the reason why I speak differently to one child versus the other child is because they're two different audiences.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and we
I
got to
love
think
that.
about that. And that's why even when we're not just having a one-on-one conversation, and even in front of, even if it's digital or virtual, that's also why we've got to be versatile and flexible because more now than ever, since the world is opening up even larger with this virtual space, we've got all different types of learners, all different types of personalities, all different types of charismas, all different types of people listening. And we have to be able to not just speak to one person. I don't know if Jane is still on the call, but Jane, as I said, one of my former students. And as a teacher in front of 34 students, you got to know that if you only teach one way, you may only be reaching out to half of the class or even a third of the class, but you've got to reach everybody.
Yeah. 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 And John, John commented, I learned about the future of private listening in my relationship with Kathy. Oh, it's so great. It is true though, Mark. And I feel like there's a lot of I used to tell this to my marketing clients a lot when I was like actively practicing marketing. Now I actively practice marketing, but in a different way, and teaching people how to use it via their words and storytelling and communicating. But I used to tell people that there's things that are never changing and there's things that are ever changing. Things that are never changing are kind of the psychology things, right? Um, Things that are ever changing are the way that we get them out there. So with marketing, it would be like there's things that are just you have to have consistency in marketing, creativity, unexpectedness, right? There's a lot of that. And then the things that are ever changing are the way that we get it out there, the mediums in which we put it out there. And I think we've heard a lot of truisms in public speaking forever. I think people like, well, number one thing people will say is like, know your audience, right? And what I think we're trying to say is the next version is so much deeper than that. It's not just knowing your audience. It's like knowing how to break through this invisible wall that everybody has anytime you're speaking to anybody, whether the person on that other end is just one person or it's 20,000 people or millions or whatever it is. It's like knowing how to do that. It's not just knowing your audience and then talking for 60 minutes like you were saying, Mark, right? It's knowing how to engage them in the right way. You're not the smartest person in the room. If you're the one speaking, the brilliance in any room, no matter how big that room is the collectiveness of that room.
You know, you helped me to appreciate even more, and I thought I already appreciated it to the umpteenth level of what we've been blessed with the opportunity to do over these last 12 months and counting and counting and counting. You realize that we've never, well, maybe once or twice, because we used to do members' choice, but we've never really repeated a drill,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And here's why I'm bringing that up. Because what you just said earlier, like when you said it's not just know your audience, it's so much deeper than that. In the past, we could break down public speaking and communication skills to a few competencies. But
Yeah.
now we know that those competencies have competencies, and
Yeah.
those competencies have
Of confidence.
competencies, right?
Yes, it's so true.
There's no longer a short list of speaking skills. There's an infinite list of how we communicate, and we want to be able to like acknowledge that and practice.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I would love to put it, just throw it out to the audience right now, just to show how we can adapt with the audience that's watching us right now. Is there anything that you feel like you struggle with learning in public speaking? Because maybe we can do a drill right here on the spot that we didn't prep for. We didn't prep for any of it, actually. We just, so if anybody puts something here, oh, George, for real. George. One of our awesome coaches, while we're waiting, if somebody ends up putting something there, I know there's a little bit of delay from when we actually
Mhm.
talk and when it goes out there, it's a couple seconds, but
Hold on, Luann wrote, maybe we have to be willing to take risks to break through the wall with an audience.
oh, that is so good. Right? There, we do. I think that we do. I definitely think in all forms of communication, even when you're talking to somebody, have you ever been, Mark, somewhere like, a party or networking event, and you can tell the other person does not know that they're behind a wall? Feels like they're just talking to this wall and trying to like they're hitting the wall with their message. And I think Luann's right. There's a lot of bravery in that, like being able to kind of have an open dialogue, ask more questions. Mark, you are the king of asking powerful questions. You can get anybody to break open with your questions.
You know, that would be a great drill, and maybe I'm borrowing this from a story that I heard that I have not yet been able to find more information on. I once heard that I think it was Apple that I heard does this when they're trying to solve a problem. Instead of sitting around the room and brainstorming solutions, they sit around and brainstorm questions.
Mm,
Nobody's allowed to give an answer. You can
mm,
only respond to a question with another question.
I like that.
So let's do that as a drill,
Let's do
right?
it. Let's do it. I'm
All
ready.
right, all right, all right. Hmm. And if anybody's got a question, great. If not, I think I'll start off with this question.
Okay.
With all of these digital platforms, Kathy,
Mm-hmm.
does traditional speaking still matter?
Okay, so I have to respond with a question,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm kind of, can I layer on? Am I supposed to be kind of like layering
It's
on
up to
that?
you.
Okay, okay,
Just
gotcha. All right.
respond with a question.
Okay, all right. Does storytelling play a bigger or a smaller role in communication?
How can people come up with stories in any situation?
What's the best way to add energy or charisma when you're speaking?
How do you make people care about
Mm.
charisma when you're speaking?
How do you know what are the right stories to tell or to bring into your speaking?
When do you stop telling the stories that people have heard you tell before?
Mm.
Ooh, wait, George. What is the North Star of your style of communication?
Oh, yeah, that's so good. Oh, that's so good.
Ooh,
Casey said storytelling is everything in communication. And she's in
aw-
communication, so she would know. She's awesome,
awesome,
by the way. Yes, that's
awesome,
true, right? Um,
awesome,
she's
awesome.
like, I'm gonna answer that question. It's everything. It is everything.
Well, listen, the idea ultimately is to come up with answers, right? And I think the reason why they do that is because sometimes the first question you ask doesn't really get deep enough. and doesn't really take you to the answer that you're following, right? But I also like to do that drill with people because I remember reading this research that the further we progress in life, the fewer questions we ask.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is super insightful, actually. Oh, I was working with somebody, Cynthia, she was on our show before, when she was doing her TED Talk on mentoring, and her whole idea in the talk was that mentoring is backwards because many times in mentoring, you expect this person that's made it in life, and they're going to tell you everything you need to know, and there's not a facilitation of questioning going on. There's not an exchange of knowledge, and so it's backwards. And so it was a great talk, and that kind of burned a little bit. Like we should be asking more questions. You know, what's really interesting, Mark, is Karen is going to be running a session. I don't know, it's coming up. I don't know if it's next week, but it's questions as power tools. And her, when she was preparing it, my mind was blown because she like really got deep into the research of it. And she was like, oh, there's all different types of questions too. And so it's really fun to not just think like to go do a drill on how to do, use questions better. It's really good to also, like you said, to go further, to go further, to go further.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the way, again, we start to make things more communal because then you're starting to draw people in. I think what's going to be hard about this is, and Luann wrote this, true, we all like to be the expert. I'll
Yeah.
even take it a step further, and I feel like in this day and age, we value expertise so much, right? That the people you see on TV, why are they being invited on? Because they're the experts in the topic. Content creation. Well, what are you creating? You're creating content that shows your expertise, right?
Mm.
And so there's this value, and I don't think we want to take away from the value. I think questions can also get us to find out, to your point earlier, Kathy, if we ask questions and we open it up to the audience and we're not just the only voice in the room, our expertise grows because somebody in the room who knows more about this is going to share something that we didn't know before. And now we can pass that on. So there's something powerful about
Yes.
asking questions. And it doesn't mean you're not the expert, but it does mean you're curious.
Yeah. Ooh, you made me think of something else, Mark. We do things backwards sometimes in speaking. So here's another point to the future of public speaking. The way that we currently, I would say normally, and normally is very vague, right? Like there's many different types of speaking and ways and stuff, but go to any conference, sit in any meeting at an office, you'll hear a lot of this. You hear a lot of people giving the answers, but we didn't get to hear the question. And I think when you ask the question, psychologically, when we ask questions, the reason why asking questions are always really good is because it causes, you can't help it. If somebody asks a question when they're speaking, it causes your brain answers it, even if your brain's arguing with the person asking the question. Like, so we do it wrong. We're doing it backwards. We're trying to facilitate the answer before people have even considered the question.
I guess we just have to be, because I feel like I'm hearing some people in my life who be like, all right, if you ask me one more damn question.
Well, that's true. That is so true. I do that thing where I show people two different ways you could tell a story. And the one way I tell like a little 30-second story, and the one way it's completely like me, I. But I want to show people the other spectrum. And completely all the way over here is have you ever, can you imagine? And you do this and you hit them with 100 questions and you're like, no, that's terrible too. Like either one of these are good. This is all about me and this is all about you.
Oh man. Well, listen, speaking of questions, George put a question in the chat, and I know we're starting to wrap, but
Yeah.
George asked, how much can a prepared talk shift safely with impromptu moments in order to
Oh,
fine tune and calibrate with an audience?
Yeah, let's answer that and then wrap because this is good. It's been I can't believe it's been an hour. It's been so fun. Thank you
Mm.
for everybody watching. We've had a steady whole bunch of people watching the whole time. So really thank you anybody and everybody who's watching. George, what an awesome question that you asked. And George, who is so many awesome things, teacher, performer, singer, right? Um, George probably knows this better than most himself, right? And yet he still works on it, which I love. I love. I'll answer a piece of it, Mark, and I think we can kind of co-answer it. But for me, I'm always teaching people, I'm just going to start from the high level. I'm always teaching people, you're so prepared that you have digested whatever it is that you're going to say, um, you've internalized it, that you haven't memorized it, because you need to be free in any given room, in any given situation, to be able to respond to anything. And sometimes it's not even words. Sometimes it's the energy of what's going on in the room. You might be in the middle of something that you prepare and you're like, oh, this is not going well. I can tell that nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about, or they don't care. So that's one piece of it. Mark, what do you think?
Mm. You talk about the word prepare, and here's what has helped me and what I teach clients and people that I work with. Let's never underestimate the power of preparation,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Like you don't want to just go into it cold. You want to know what you're talking about. You want to kind of run through it in your head a couple of times. You may want to actually get up out of your seat and run through it a couple of times the way that you would speak it or deliver it. And I'm talking to even that difficult conversation. You're about to call somebody into the room and,
Yep.
just kind of go through your language and your words and go over it a couple of times. Going over it a couple of times is another way of saying drilling it, right? Because then what starts to happen is you start to know it. I'll use this old phrase, you start to know it cold, right? And I think what then happens is because you know it's so cold, your brain runs on automatic so well that even if there's an interruption, your brain can call it back.
Mm,
I always talk about my man Kobe Bryant, may he rest in peace, who would go onto the court and practice certain situations over and over and over and over and over again. So
yep.
that should that situation ever happen in a game, he wouldn't have to think so much. He could just easily adapt. So I always talk about the power of preparation and drilling so you can get it down so that it actually frees up your space. And here's what I would say is the ultimate everyday drill with that. That story, that point, that thing you want to bring up at a meeting, that thing you want to come across in an interview. Don't wait for the high anxiety moment to share it. Because if you wait to the high anxiety moment, you're going to break down. Your brain is going to freeze. So even when I prep people for interviews, I say, whatever that story is, tell that story as many times as you can in a casual conversation, in a low stakes conversation. And then it just becomes something naturally you say,
Mm,
not something you anxiously say. And that, Kathy, that to me ties in to what we do at Speaker Skills Academy, right? We're teaching and practicing and drilling skills in a low stakes, fun, judgment free zone so that
yeah.
when it does matter, you've already got the skills to take you into the future of public speaking.
Mm. Woo. I love that. And yeah, Luann said such good advice, Mark. Yes, for sure. She also said something that I just want to kind of touch on and then close. She said, you know it so well that you can riff. She said it took her years. I will also say, this is a great sports analogy, but in speaking, like many other things, like many other sports, you want to be on the offense, not on the defense. And so when you prepare, you're on the offense. Like you said, Mark, you prepared so well that you can just roll with it or you can riff like Luann, sorry, my mother-in-law's name's Leanne. So if John's still listening, I have Leanne on the brain. But Luann said, you are playing offensively, not defensively. And you don't want to be playing defensively. You want to play offensively. I think we should totally end, Mark, with questions. I think it would be fun since we talked about that. And we'll
Okay.
put the questions to our audience. Those are two things we talked about. So let's put it to the audience. I'll start because I decided to do this drill on the off the cuff for you. For anybody watching, how could you use fun drills to be a better speaker and storyteller?
Oh, and do we want people? Wait, 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 wait.
Oh, I was hoping you would go, Mark.
Oh.
Anybody else? But please, if you're watching, add a question. See how off the cuff this is?
Yes, that
You
was
weren't
great off
prepared
the
for
cuff.
this.
How can you practice slowing down
That's a good
when
one.
you speak?
Mm. How can you bring your stories to life by using more of the senses? Sight, sound, touch, taste, movement.
And because eye contact is so important, because you get to really see what's going on and figuring out how to adjust. How do you heighten your awareness of what's going on around you every day?
Ooh, I'm going to build on that one. If you're paying attention to what's happening every day, where can you where can you put this information so you don't have to remember it? Hint, the answer is a story file. That one I have to provide the answer for.
That was awesome. That
Mm.
was awesome. That was fun.
It
That,
was fun.
that was
This was really fun. Mark, what would you say are the couple big wrap-ups from what we talked about today? Because we kind of went all over the map.
um and that's the future, right? The future is you gotta be all over the map because there are so many different personalities and so many different ways to communicate that we've got to be flexible and we've got to be versatile. And that's probably the most important muscle that we need to drill over and over and over again.
Yeah. Awesome. I would just wrap it up with this two things. First of all, if you've been listening to us and you love the space that we're in with drilling, come visit us at Speaker Skills Academy. We have sessions all the time. They're super fun. The community is amazing. Feel free because we are all living the future of public speaking in there, and not everybody's a speaker. In fact, most people aren't professional speakers in our community. I would also say this would be my final thought. You are going to have to be a really great speaker more and more as the future plays out, because content's going to be easy to come by. Your voice and your stories are not. Those can only come from you. And with that, y'all, I I thank you for watching and being part of this. And Mark, I have a line that I'm gonna end it with because I hate ending on thank you. I'm not gonna end on thank you. So I'm gonna
What are
say
you gonna
this.
say? What are you gonna say? Gracias?
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna say thank you in another language. I'm gonna say this. Remember this one thing in life. There's no such thing as a boring story or a boring topic, only boring speakers. So let's find a way to not be boring speakers. Word up, right?
Word up.
And that's a wrap.
And that's a wrap. We'll do this again. We'll do this again.
Yeah, we will do it again.
Thanks for joining. Word up.